Welcome to the tutorial for Cyberpunk, a tabletop RPG by Emmanuel Mello. This guide will help you to understand how to play and how to run the game. Sections of the video will be displayed on the left and timestamped as well. Let's get started. What is Cyberpunk? Cyberpunk is a minimalist, cyberpunk tabletop RPG published by MythWorks and designed by Emmanuel Mello. The game won the 2024 Silver ENnie Award for Best Layout and Design, recognized for its innovative and remarkably sleek pamphlet-based presentation. Cyberpunk is built specifically for one-shot sessions where you play as a team of runners, mercs, criminals, activists living on the edge and running in the shadows of a gritty, ultraviolet world, all on their last run. It features a minimalist version of the acclaimed Forged in the Dark system, streamlining the mechanics for quick pickup and immediate play. If you know Blades in the Dark by John Harper, you'll recognize the rules framework. The deluxe physical version of the game, called Cyberpunk Augmented, comes as a series of several heavy-duty pamphlets in a compact, unfolding boxed set. Each pamphlet is constructed of thick cardstock with a matte finish. There is a GM card sheet, which explains how to run the game, 5 runner files, or character sheets, which can take dry erase marker. These card sheets also contain the core rules of the game. Then there are 6 expansions. Framework, which presents GM advice, in-depth examples of consequences, optional rules, and a structure for longer campaign play. Predator, a setting where runners navigate the collapse of a lunar habitat and deal with an unrelenting, deadly predator-like nemesis. Mona Rai's Megalopolis gives you the framework for creating missions that reference the classic Sprawl trilogy by William Gibson. That trilogy includes Neuromancer, Count Zero, and Mona Lisa Overdrive. Weird is a tool set for adding supernatural elements to the game, giving runners the possibility of wielding meta talents with either a mad science, supernatural, or extraterrestrial origin. Hunters provides a framework for more detailed enemies to throw at players, including an archetype, signature ability, and traits for each. And Mind the Gap is a best-in-class example of a scenario that is ideal for introducing players and GMs to the rules of the game. Each of these expansions and missions are beyond the scope of this tutorial video, except I will pull examples and snippets from the Framework expansion. But overall, I'll just be covering the materials found on the GM and character card sheets. Links to where you can order this augmented version and digital versions of this game are below. What you need. Cyberpunk is designed for minimal setup and maximum action. Here's what you need to get started. Physical materials. If you want to play this game in meat space, you'll need the GM sheet and the runner files or character sheets. Each player should also have 4 to 6 six-sided dice and a pencil, or a dry erase marker if they're using the deluxe card sheets from the augmented box. I would also suggest that players have some index cards or scrap paper for jotting down gear, contacts, and quick references. And of course, a GM should have a notebook or journal for session notes and things like timers. Digital play. To play the game digitally, there are 4 options at the time of recording and a 5th on the way. Google Sheets, or the virtual tabletops Roll, Foundry, Let's Roll, and eventually Alchemy. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to play using the physical game. Character creation. Character creation in Cyberpunk is fast and focused. You'll have a complete runner ready to hit the streets in about 10 to 15 minutes. This runner file has your character creation steps and core rules. First, you choose your handle. That's your street name. Next, you describe your look in just a few words. This is your visual style and cyberpunk aesthetic. Then you select your angle. This is what drives this runner on their last job. And remember, every job is your last job in this game. And when it all comes to a head at the end of a session, you make a single roll of the dice to see if you fulfill this angle for your character. After that, you assign your approach ratings by distributing +2, +1, and +1 across 4 different approaches. These define how your character excels at problem solving and defines the number of d6s you can roll when employing that approach. Then you'll distribute 8 dice across this list of skills. For any one skill that has 2 dice, you can use up a 3rd die to assign an expertise to it. The specifics of that expertise can be anything that you want that is related to that skill. Note that this does not add a 3rd die to that skill's roll, but expertise does give you an edge if you invoke it in an action roll. Then you pick your signature augmentation. That's your defining cybernetic enhancement, the special ability that makes you unique. This is used either actively in a situation at the cost of 1 stress, as a one-time defense measure to resist a consequence, or in any other case with narrative permission. Finally, you set your load by choosing a light, medium, or heavy equipment loadout, which determines how much gear you can carry. You don't determine gear beforehand in this game. Instead, you determine what you've brought along only at the moment that you need it. Core mechanics. Action roll mechanics. The action roll is at the heart of Cyberpunk. Every time your runner does something risky, uncertain, or dramatic, you'll make an action roll to see what happens. The basic formula is simple. You combine an approach with a skill, roll that many 6-sided dice, and take the highest result. These represent how your runner tackles problems. If you have Smart +2, you will add 2d6 to your roll when using Smart. Skills add more dice to your action roll. If you have Close Combat +1 and you're doing something that involves hurting someone up close, you add 1 more die to your pool. If you have 0 in a stat, you roll 2d6s and take the lower result for that stat. When you roll, you're looking at the highest single die result. If your highest die is a 6, that is considered a full success. You do what you intended without complications. A 4 or 5 is a partial success. You succeed, but there's a cost or complication. A 1, 2, or 3 is a failure. Things go wrong, and the GM will let you know how. And 2 or more 6s is a critical success, which will result in an edge, improved narrative positioning, or any kind of immediate advantage in the fiction. Before you roll, the GM will set 2 things: threat level and effect level. Threat level determines how dangerous failure or complications might be. Effect level determines how much you accomplish with success. Both range from 1 to 4, with 2 being standard. Note that the numbers themselves don't have any mathematical bearing. They're just a way to gauge severity. You can get an edge, which is a significant narrative advantage. This might come from good positioning, the right gear, or smart tactics. An edge typically reduces threat level by 1 step, making action safer. The key thing to understand is that Cyberpunk uses these rolls to drive the narrative forward. Every roll changes the situation, whether you succeed or fail. There's no standing still in this game. Every action roll has momentum. Consequences. When you fail an action roll, or even when you get a partial success on a roll and succeed at what you were trying to do, you also face a consequence. The GM chooses what makes sense based on the threat level that was set before the roll. Higher threat levels mean more severe consequences. Consequences are what happen when things don't go perfectly. They're the core of how Cyberpunk creates tension and keeps the story moving forward. Understanding consequences is crucial for both players and GMs. There are several types of consequences that can occur. The most common is a complication. This creates a new problem or obstacle that wasn't there before. You can also face reduced effect, where you succeed but don't accomplish as much as you hoped. Harm is another type of consequence. This represents injury, fatigue, or other physical problems. If you're climbing a building and slip, you might take level 1 harm from scrapes and bruises, or level 2 harm from a serious fall. Level 3 harm is life-changing damage, and level 4 harm is essentially lethal. The GM might also advance a progress track or clock. These represent ongoing threats or developing situations. Maybe there's a corporate response track that fills up as you make noise during your infiltration. When it fills completely, security teams arrive in force. Here's the important thing. Consequences aren't punishments for rolling poorly. They're story fuel. They create new situations that demand creative solutions. Gear declaration and flashbacks. Cyberpunk handles equipment in a very different way from traditional RPGs. Instead of making detailed shopping lists before the mission, you declare gear when you need it. This keeps the focus on action rather than preparation. At character creation, you choose your load, light, medium, or heavy. Light load gives you 3 gear slots, medium gives you 5, and heavy gives you 7. You don't have to decide what specific gear you're carrying right away. During play, when you need something, you can declare that you have it. Say you need to pick a lock. You can declare, I brought lockpicks, and mark one of your gear slots. As long as it makes sense for your character to have prepared that item, you just have it. Flashbacks take this concept even further. A flashback lets you retroactively establish that you did something in the past to help with your current situation. Maybe you're facing a locked door and you say, actually, I scouted this building yesterday and hid a key card behind this fire extinguisher. Flashbacks cost stress to use. Simple, believable flashbacks will cost 1 stress. More elaborate or unlikely flashbacks might cost 2 or even 3 stress. The GM decides the cost based on how plausible the flashback is. It should be noted that you can also invoke gear by using a flashback and taking on various amounts of stress if that gear is not entirely plausible or reasonable for the situation. You can use a flashback to declare a very special piece of high-grade gear like a state-of-the-art cyber deck, a specific program, an NPC with the right skill set to help you, or even additional augmentations. And you don't always have to mark stress to pay for these. You can take a drawback, which includes debt or you being hunted for it. Those drawbacks will most prominently come up in the session's final epilogue check called the angle roll. Your load choice has real consequences in the fiction. Light load means you're fast and stealthy. You can slip through vents, climb easily, and move without making noise. But you have fewer bites at the quantum gear apple, so to speak. Heavy load means you get to invoke lots of plausible equipment, but you're slower, more obvious, and might struggle with athletic challenges. The GM will factor your load into how the environment and NPCs react to you and what actions are possible. Stress and glitches. Stress is Cyberpunk's way of measuring the psychological and physical toll of living on the edge. It's not just hit points, it represents the mounting pressure of your runner's last desperate job. The stress track actually shows you exactly what each action costs. Push costs 2 stress. An assist costs 1 stress, and flashbacks cost 1 or more stress depending on complexity. The real danger comes when you fill your entire stress track. When you mark your last stress box, you are overloaded, and an approach of your choosing becomes permanently glitched and immediately incurs a complication. This could be anything from being taken out of action, exposing the team's weakness, making the team lose an advantage, or damaging something crucial. And while in this overloaded state, you can't perform actions that would require more stress. You're maxed out and running on fumes. The only way to get back in action is to take a breather and clear some stress. Taking a breather lets you step back from immediate danger and recover. You describe how you unwind, gather your thoughts, take a pill, turn up the volume, punch a wall, check in with a loved one, whatever. Then you roll the appropriate approach without adding a skill. You get bonus dice if you bring out your angle or if you deplete appropriate gear. The result determines how much stress you clear. Rolling 2 or more 6s means you clear all stress, or you can ignore both level 1 and 2 harm penalties for the rest of the run. Rolling 1/6 means you clear 3 stress or ignore either level 1 or 2 harm penalties. Rolling 4 or 5 as your highest die means you clear 2 stress or ignore level 1 harm penalties. If your highest die is a 1, 2, or 3, it means you only clear 1 stress. Taking a breather is a natural pressure release valve. Runners push themselves hard and accumulate stress, but they can find moments to decompress and get back in the action. The key is finding the right moment to take a breather without leaving your team in danger. Glitch dice. Glitch dice are Cyberpunk's way of representing the unreliable nature of cybernetic augmentations and cutting-edge technology. They add an element of unpredictability to rolls while reinforcing the cyberpunk theme that high-tech solutions come with inherent risks. Glitched factors come from various sources. Each glitched approach permanently replaces one die with a glitch die. Certain gear, environmental conditions, or GM-determined circumstances might also introduce glitched factors that add a glitch die to your roll. When an approach is glitched, then on an action roll, a normal die is replaced with a glitch die. You use a die that's easily discernible from the rest. A glitch die functions normally for determining success, but creates additional risk. When you have a glitch die in your pool, roll it along with your normal dice. Use all the dice, including glitch dice, to determine your action's success or failure as normal. After judging the outcome as usual, read the lowest of any of your glitch dice separately. Regardless of the outcome, if the lowest glitch die shows a 1, 2, or 3, there is a consequence you can't resist. If it's a 4 or 5, there is a consequence too, but you can resist it normally. Glitch consequences should relate to the technology that caused the glitch. Think of glitches as the manifestations of the faulty, cheap, or makeshift gear that your runner is having to use, scraping by with what they have to work with. These consequences are in addition to any normal consequences from your action roll result. Harm and resistance. Harm represents physical injury, mental trauma, or other lasting damage that can affect your runner's performance. Unlike stress, which you can clear during the run, Harm tends to stick around and create ongoing penalties. The harm track has different levels, level 1, 2, and 3. Each level has multiple boxes, and each filled level gives you penalties on relevant action rolls. Level 1 harm might be scrapes and bruises that give you a small penalty. Level 2 harm could be a serious injury that significantly impacts your performance. Level 3 harm represents severe, potentially life-threatening damage. If you take harm of a level that's already filled, it escalates up to the next level. So if you have 2 level 1 harms already and take another level 1 harm, that last one becomes a level 2 harm instead. But you don't have to just accept every consequence. When the GM tells you about a consequence you're about to face, you can choose to resist it. You have several options for resistance. You can mark stress to resist, roll one of your approaches without adding a skill, and the result determines how much stress you take. Rolling high means you resist the consequence with minimal stress cost. Rolling low means you take more stress but still avoid or reduce the consequence. You might also have armor or special resistance options. Some gear might give you protection against specific types of harm. Most prominently, your signature augmentation might let you use special resistance. Instead of marking stress, you mark a special box to completely avoid certain types of consequences that your augmentation could logically protect against. Note that you can only use special resistance derived from your signature augmentation once per session. Let's say you're in a gunfight and the GM says you're about to take level 2 harm from getting shot. You could just take the harm and deal with the penalties, or you could resist by rolling an approach, maybe aggressive to power through the pain or smart to find cover at the last second. If you roll well, you might only take 1 stress and completely avoid the harm. If you roll poorly, you might take 3 stress, but still reduce the harm from level 2 down to level 1. If you have armored skin or something like that as your signature augmentation, you might be able to use special resistance instead, marking that box to completely shrug off the gunfire without taking any stress or harm at all. The key decision is whether the consequence is worth resisting. Sometimes it's better to take a harm and save your stress for more dangerous situations. Other times, you absolutely need to resist because the consequence would take you out of action. Managing these choices is a crucial part of surviving your last run. Special actions. Special actions are a way to modify your dice rolls and help your team. These actions let you push beyond your normal limits when the situation demands it, but they come at a cost. Push is the most common special action. When you're making an action roll, you can choose to push yourself for an extra d6. This costs 2 stress, but it adds an extra die to your roll, giving you better odds of success. You can push on any action roll, representing your runner digging deep and pushing beyond their normal capabilities. You can also add a glitch die instead of marking 2 stress to cover the cost of pushing. And you can also push for increased effect, which is how you typically get to effect 4. Assist lets you help another runner with their action. This costs 1 stress, and you give them an extra d6 for their roll. You need to describe how you're helping. Maybe you're providing cover fire, hacking a door while they sneak through, or just shouting encouragement at the right moment. The fiction needs to make sense for the assistance. Your signature augmentation can also be used as a special action. Activating it costs 1 stress and typically gives you an edge on relevant rolls or lets you do things that wouldn't normally be possible for an unaugmented human. Take a breather is another special action we covered earlier. Instead of making a regular action roll, you step back from the immediate danger and try to clear stress. This requires finding an appropriate moment and situation where you can actually take that breather. Here's the thing, you can combine some of these actions. You could activate your augmentation for 1 stress, push for 2 more stress, and have a teammate assist you for their 1 stress, again all on the same roll. In that case, you would get your normal dice, +1 from every augmentation, +1 from pushing, +1 from assist. But you'd collectively be spending 4 stress across the team for that 1 roll. The key to special actions is resource management. Most of these actions cost stress, and stress is a limited resource that builds towards overload, which will permanently glitch one of your approaches. You need to decide which moments are worth the investment and which ones you can handle with your normal capabilities. For the GM, engagement plans. Every run starts with the engagement plan. This is where the GM presents the job, the target, the obstacle, and what the runners are trying to achieve. But here's the key difference from other heist games. You don't spend time planning. The engagement plan throws you directly into the action at a critical moment. For the nature of their approach, players will elect for either assault, deception, stealth, social, or transport. This is why the gear declaration and flashback systems become crucial. Since you didn't plan ahead, you reveal your preparation through play. When you need a security badge, you declare that you brought one. When you need to know the guard rotation, you flash back to when you scouted the location. The planning happens reactively as problems arise. 3-act pacing. Cyberpunk is designed around a 3-act structure that mirrors cyberpunk movies and fiction. Understanding this pacing helps GMs create sessions that feel cinematic and satisfying, with tension that builds naturally towards a climactic finale. Act 1, the hook and setup. Act 1 establishes the situation and gets the team moving. This is where the engagement plan kicks in and you determine how the run starts. This first moment should establish the stakes, introduce the immediate obstacles, and get the team oriented to their environment. This isn't about heavy exposition, it's about throwing them into the action while giving them just enough context to make meaningful decisions. The players should understand what they're trying to accomplish and what's standing in their way. Act 2, complications and escalation. Act 2 is where things go wrong, because in Cyberpunk, things always go wrong. This is the heart of the session, where complications cascade and the pressure builds. Maybe their hacking attempt triggers additional security protocols. Perhaps their inside contact gets discovered, or the corporate response arrives earlier than expected. Act 2 should feel like a pressure cooker. Each complication or failure should make the situation more desperate. The team should be stacking up stress, taking risks, and making harder choices as their options narrow. Act 3, climax and resolution. Act 3 is the finale, the moment where everything comes together for better or worse. This is typically a single high-stakes situation that determines whether the run succeeds or fails. Maybe it's a desperate firefight in the server room, or a tense negotiation with a corporate exec, or a high-speed chase through the megacity. By Act 3, most progress and stress tracks should be full or nearly full. The team should be running low on gear slots and options. This is where they make their final push and discover whether their runner's last job ends in glory or disaster. Act 3 ends with the resolution of the run, but the story doesn't end there. Each runner's personal angle determines how their individual story concludes, which gets resolved through the epilogue mechanic called the angle roll. One pacing tip for GMs here: keep Act 1 short and punchy, 30 minutes maximum. Spend most of your session time in Act 2, letting complications build and compound. Save Act 3 for the last 30 or 45 minutes, when stress is high and consequences matter most. Threat, effect, edge. Before every action roll, the GM sets 2 crucial factors that determine the stakes and potential outcomes: threat level and effect level. Understanding these mechanics is essential for creating consistent, dramatic gameplay. Threat level represents how dangerous the action is, what kind of consequences the runner might face if things go wrong. Threat level typically ranges from 1 to 3, with 2 being the standard baseline. Threat level 1 represents minor consequences. Maybe you trigger a soft alarm, leave some traces behind, or take level 1 harm from a minor mishap. Threat level 2 is serious consequences. Full alarms, significant harm, or major complications that change the situation. Threat level 3 means severe consequences, immediate danger, level 3 harm, or catastrophic problems that could end the run. Effect level determines how much the runner accomplishes with success. Like threat level, it typically ranges from 1 to 3, with a maximum of 4, and 2 as the standard. Effect level 1 means limited potential success. You make some progress, but don't completely achieve your goal. Maybe you get partial data, unlock one door instead of the whole security system, or only temporarily disable a camera. Effect level 2 is a standard success. You accomplish what you set out to do. And level 3 is exceptional success. You achieve your goal and then some, maybe get extra information or create additional advantages. Effect level is set based on the runner's approach, tools, and positioning. Using the right gear for the job might increase effect level. Trying to accomplish something without proper preparation might reduce it. Edge represents a significant advantage that improves a runner's chances. Edge typically reduces threat level by one step, making actions safer without reducing their potential effectiveness. Edge can come from many sources. Using the right gear for the situation often provides edge, hacking with a military-grade cyber deck, picking locks with professional tools, or fighting with high-quality weapons. Good tactical positioning gives edge. Attacking from cover, having the high ground, or catching the enemies by surprise. Superior numbers, detailed intelligence, or environmental advantages can also all create edge. Some GM tips here. Start with the baseline of Threat 2, Effect 2 for most actions. Adjust based on the fiction. Danger factors increase threat, while prepared actions also increase effect. And advantages provide edge, which could decrease threat. Be consistent but responsive to player creativity and good positioning. The goal is to make the mechanics serve the story, not the other way around. Progress tracks. Progress tracks are one of the most powerful tools in Cyberpunk for creating tension and tracking ongoing situations. They represent developing threats, advancing objectives, and the passage of time during your run. Progress tracks can represent almost any ongoing situation. Common examples include corporate response that fills as security becomes aware of the intrusion, data extraction that the team needs to complete for their objective, or system lockdown that advances as the facility's defenses activate. They're not just for negative consequences. You can track runner progress as well. For example, you might have an infiltration progress track to show how close the team is to reaching their target. Most progress tracks have 4, 6, or 8 segments depending on how significant the situation is. A 4-segment track represents something that develops quickly, like guards investigate noise. A 6-segment track is for moderate developments, like facility lockdown. An 8-segment track represents major situations that take real time to unfold, like corporate manhunt. Tracks advance based on both action roll results and the fiction itself. When the team makes noise during a stealth infiltration, the security alert track might advance by 1 tick. When they successfully hack a terminal, their data extraction track progresses. Consequences from failed rolls often advance threatening tracks, while successful actions advance beneficial ones. The real power of progress tracks is how they create competing pressures. The team needs to advance their objective tracks to succeed, but their actions also advance threat tracks that work against them. This creates natural time pressure and forces difficult decisions. Complex runs might have several tracks running simultaneously. A facility infiltration could include security alert, data extraction, escape route, and corporate response tracks, all advancing at different rates based on the team's actions and consequences. Some GM tips. Start each run with 2 to 3 progress tracks maximum. More than that could become unwieldy. Make sure that at least 1 track represents the team's primary objective and at least 1 represents mounting opposition. Advance tracks in response to the fiction, not on arbitrary timers. Use tracks to pace your 3-act structure. In Act 1, tracks advance slowly as the situation develops. In Act 2, they should advance more rapidly as complications mount. In Act 3, multiple tracks should be nearly full, creating maximum pressure for the finale. When a threat track fills completely, it should create a significant change in the situation. Security arrives, systems lock down, or the window of opportunity closes. Or perhaps the runners have completed an objective and money is immediately credited to their accounts, but they still have to get out alive if they ever want to spend that money. Consequences advice. Coming up with consequences can be the biggest challenge for a GM trying to keep the story moving forward. If you recall, there are several types of consequences that can occur, and the most common is a complication. This creates a new problem or obstacle that wasn't there before. The framework card sheet contains some of the most prevalent examples of complications. Reduced effect is another common consequence, where the runner succeeds, but they don't accomplish as much as they hoped. We can look again to the framework expansion for some prime examples. When in doubt, give the player an option between 2 types of consequences, or 2 things that may be affected. For example, they could either take harm or reduce their position, or the choice between a consequence affecting them or their environment. The choice of 2 possibilities can simplify things for you while still empowering the player to make real choices in the fiction. Adversary skill. Adversary skill determines how capable and dangerous the opposition is. When regular adversaries are involved, the runner's action rolls determine the outcome for both sides simultaneously. A single roll tells you how runners' actions interact with the adversaries and which consequences result. This keeps the action flowing without requiring separate rolls for every NPC. When skilled adversaries act, they can initiate actions that are about to accomplish something significant. The GM announces what the skilled adversary is trying to do, then the runners get to respond with their own action rolls. The runner's roll results determine whether the adversary actually succeeds or fails at their intended action. Elite adversaries are the most dangerous. By taking the initiative, when elite adversaries act, they can inflict a consequence that must be resisted before the runners then have a chance to act. This represents a truly dangerous opposition that can force immediate defensive responses and control the pace of the encounters. These skill levels work together with progress tracks and the consequence system to create appropriately scaled opposition. Regular adversaries provide background resistance, skilled adversaries create meaningful obstacles, and elite adversaries represent serious threats that demand responsive action and careful tactical counteraction. The angle roll. The angle roll is Cyberpunk's unique way of resolving each runner's personal story after the run concludes. While the team's objective might succeed or fail, each runner's individual fate depends on their personal angle and how well they pursued it during the session. If you recall, every runner has an angle, their personal motivation for taking this last run. This isn't just flavor text, it's a mechanical element that drives the epilogue. During the run, players should look for opportunities to pursue their angle, and GMs should weave these personal stakes into the larger mission whenever possible. After the main run concludes, each player declares what approach they'll use to pursue their angle and gather the corresponding dice. But the dice pool will be modified based on what happened during the run. Players get a minus die if the chosen approach is glitched. They also lose a die for each marked debt, representing how their obligations hinder their personal goals. They lose dice if they overlooked or failed to comply with critical requirements like time constraints, quality standards, or integrity, or lose 2 dice if they abandoned the mission entirely. On the positive side, they get bonus dice for each marked cred, representing how captured bounties, extracting corporate secrets, finding untraceable cred sticks, or doing solids for contacts helps them achieve their personal goals. If they end up with 0 or fewer dice after all of these modifiers are added up, they roll 2 dice and keep the lowest result. This represents how badly things have gone for their runner. In the end, if they roll double 6s, that means they succeeded remarkably. They can choose to offer someone a hand, helping improve their results by 1 step through collaborative storytelling. Rolling a 6 means they got out mostly intact, but something doesn't feel like a win. There's a hollowness to their personal resolution. Rolling 4 or 5 means they did it, but they know it won't last. They achieved their goal, but there are consequences or complications that will catch up with them later. Rolling 1 to 3 means they failed, and their actions have only managed to set them back even further. Their personal quest not only fails, but makes things worse. Players can actually bump their roll result here up by 1 tier by paying any kind of huge personal cost, giving someone up, losing something that's irreplaceable, etc. You should always make sure that the players know they have that option. Each player then gets a few minutes to describe what happens to their character. This is their moment to resolve their runner's personal story, separate from the team's success or failure. The system ensures that every runner's story gets a proper individual conclusion, making each character's personal journey as important as the team's collective mission. Conclusion. The best place to start is with the official Cyberpunk materials. The augmented box set from MythWorks contains everything we've covered in this tutorial, plus the 6 expansion modules that add new scenarios, enemies, and optional rules. You'll find purchase links for both physical and digital versions in the description below. Support MythWorks and Emmanuel Mello by picking up the official version. You're getting a game with innovative design and beautiful award-winning presentation. If you have questions about any of the rules we've covered, or if you want to share your experiences running or playing Cyberpunk, please leave a comment down below. And until next time, stay chrome, watch your back, and remember, in Cyberpunk, every run is your last run. Make it count.